Hello, I am Merkaba18. Thank you so much for watching. We are bringing you another in-depth guide for Rainbow Six Extraction. Today we're going to be talking about Capitao. Capitao is an interesting operator for me, much like Sledge in our last video. I believed that Capitao was way underpowered as I was leveling through. We'll talk about why I didn't particularly like him at first, and then we'll talk about why I think that's changed slightly. I think he is one of the weaker operators overall, but I do think he is a little bit underrated. His skill set is very niche, and it can be kind of hard to use him in a way that's effective. And I do think that his progression is a little bit underwhelming in terms of like how much better his crossbow is at level 1 versus level 10. But we'll talk about all that in the in-depth footage, in the in-game footage here in just a minute. So what is Capitao? He is an area denial and smokescreen class. He is able to take his tac crossbow and silently shoot bolts that detonate in impact, and they can alternate between smokescreen and venom bolts. We'll show you what that looks like in the game here in just a minute. Level 2, you get an increase to swap speed and reloading speed, so they're 30% faster on both accounts. Level 3, you get one of his better guns, in my opinion, the M249. I almost always use this gun, but we'll talk about the loadout here in just a minute. This is the same gun that Gridlock gets as well, but it's a belt-fed and longer reload speed with a higher mag count. So it works and feels a little bit differently than Gridlock's, but it's the same, essentially like the same base gun. Level 4, you get the speed upgrade from 30 up to 30% faster, which is really important regardless. One of the things that I have said before is that you're going to get speed and armor upgrades. It's just a matter of how much and how much they impact you. But that's a good upgrade. At level 5, you get Resilient Revival, which is one of the better perks, I think. You can end up reviving yourself if you kill enough Archeans. It will also prevent you from going down. So if you take down an enemy, it's not going to hit you anymore. But you'll also gain a little bit of health, which will stop your DBNO from becoming a KO and allow your team a little bit more time to get to you. Arsenal update at level 6, the Spaz shotgun, which is one of my least favorite guns in the game. I almost never use it unless my chat is trying to turn a meme build and get me killed. The level 7 upgrade is a bolt effect duration increase to 15 seconds. The damage to venom bolts is increased, and that's a really important upgrade. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. Armor increase at level 8, 20% less damage. Level 9, you get the M12 shotgun, or submachine gun, excuse me. This is an interesting gun. I have some comments about that. We'll talk about that here in the loadout in a minute. And then at number 10, you get the bolt increase to level 4. Or increase means you'll get 4 bolts instead of the standard ones that you start with. Now, this is kind of what I was talking about a little bit. His ability progression doesn't feel super fast or super, like, it doesn't, when you start at level 1 and then you end up at level 10, it is a little bit different. It is a little bit better, but it doesn't feel that much better. And so, like, as you're progressing some of these operators, their ability feels way more powerful. You can feel a very big difference. One of the best examples of that is with Sledge. At level 1, Sledge can't stun most things, and his swing speed's slower. So you just feel more powerful. And with Capitao, it just doesn't feel that way as much. And I hope that they'll rework him a little bit and give him a little bit better upgrades there. So let's talk about his loadout, and then we'll get into some in-depth in-game footage. So the Para 308 is a decent starting gun. You end up with a low mag, pretty moderate fire rate, and high damage. The recoil is a little bit tricky to control to some degree, but it does pack quite a punch. So as long as you can control the recoil, this is a good gun to start with. Almost always, I'm going to use the M249 here. It's just one of the best guns in the game. This one has a max capacity of 100, and it's belt fed, which means it's going to reload a little bit slower than, for example, the Saw with Gridlock. But the fire rate, the damage, all of it, it feels pretty much the same. It's just going to be a little bit different on the reload speed and the mag size. The Spaz 15, probably could just delete it from the game, honestly. It's terrible. I don't like it. I almost never use it. But hey, it's there for you if you like it. And then the M12 is an interesting one. I've heard people in my chat and in my community mention that this is statistically the worst gun in the game. And I have a hard time with that. I don't know. I'm not a statistics expert. I haven't dug in and done a lot of testing on the specific numbers. I'll leave that to some other people. But it feels better than people say it is. So I'm not going to suggest that it's the best gun in the game because that's not true, but it feels better than people give it credit for. I would say it's a very underrated gun. It's not one that I would use in most circumstances because I tend to prefer the M249 with him, but it's a better gun than I think people give it credit for. And it's a very niche thing if you're using a more run and gun style and you want to deal with less reload speed. This is a good option for you. And then, you know, to a lesser degree, the Para 308. So I would say the M249 is my favorite. M12 is my second. And then if I have to, I go the Para. But most of the time, almost 80% of the time, it's going to be the M249 for me. So there's that. His secondary option is one and one only, the PRBR 92. Because he only has one option, it's just what you're going to use. The only option there and to choose would be to decide if you're going to silence it or go loud with it. So there's that. Now, we'll talk about more of this here in just a minute, but you want to kind of pick react tech that will either fit your team's needs, as I always say, or if you really want to do something interesting, you can take smoke grenades with Capitao to expand his niche and his role. It's a very niche role and a very specific role, but if you want to expand it, you can, in addition to the smoke screen bolts that he can shoot out, you can carry some smoke grenades. I don't think that's the best use of his ability or his kit, but again, that's just a way in which you can expand out his ability and do better with it. Now, they don't have venom grenades or like gas grenades that will do temporary damage, but if they did, you could also do that with him, and we'll talk about more of that here in just a minute. So this is just really going to depend on what you need. There is no like for like comparison other than the smoke grenade. And the one thing that I will mention is that if you are bringing Capitao, you probably don't want to bring smoke in because their ability and their roles overlap so much. That it's basically going to be wasting a slot. There's only 3 slots per team, and so if you're bringing Capitao and Smoke or vice versa, you're kind of wasting a spot, and I think that they both do very, very similar things, and you don't want to bring both of them. So just keep that in mind as you're building your team out. All right, so let's take a look at some of this in-game footage, and I'll talk about why I think his ability has grown on me a little bit, why I think it's a very niche thing, but one that you can do a lot of things with. So let's talk about it. All right, here we are in game with a max level Capitao. There is a lot to get to with Capitao here and why I think he is one of the weaker operators. There are some specific things that he can do, as I mentioned before, that make him pretty good for specific situations. But let's go ahead and talk about some basics. He has his PRB 92, and then I usually use the G8A1. I use whatever max level scope you can use. And this one is the exact same gun, as I said, from Gridlock, who has the saw with a clip instead of a belt. And as you can see here from this gun, this is a belt-fed drum, which means that the reload time is quite a bit longer. So just keep that in mind as you're moving about the map and as you are using this gun. It's going to feel similar. It's going to do about the same amount of damage. It's going to have a little bit of the same recoil. All of it's going to feel pretty similar. It's obviously just got a larger mag, and it's going to take longer to reload. So just keep that in mind. All right, so here's some basic things to keep in mind with Capitao. There are 2 things that he brings to the table. One, if you press his Alt button, he has both Venom Bolts and Smoke Bolts. All right, so let's talk about those in 2 separate ways. First of all, the Smoke Bolt is, and pardon the interruption there from Ash, she is so rude. The Smoke Bolt is essentially going to become a screen cover. Now, what does that mean? The same thing as a smoke grenade. So if you bring a smoke grenade in on one of your operators and you throw it out there, you're going to cover the area in smoke. Archeans over there cannot see you. So let's say there's an Archean right here. We want to be able to cross over there. You can use that as a cover to move across without them seeing you, therefore preventing any kind of alerts. It's a very sort of passive way of providing your team some cover. Now, he only has 4 of those, and so one of the ways that you can expand his kit is by bringing smoke grenades. And I don't recommend you do that, and we'll talk about why here in just a minute. And that is because the smoke grenade is very niche, and there's not a lot of circumstances in which you're going to want to do that. There are, a few, like you want to get across the path, or you want to, just silently move towards a point, or delay any kind of Archean rush. Those kinds of things can happen, but they're very niche. And there's a way in which you can make a case for just pulling out a gun and shooting the Archean with a silencer or with your loud gun. in order to prevent the Howl as well. But so there is circumstances where you're going to need to use a Smoke Bolt, but candidly, it's one of the weakest sort of ult pieces in the game, in my opinion. It does have its usefulness. So let's go ahead and expend those. Now, when you use those, you can recharge them with a rechargeability box, and it will give you 4 more. Now, the other thing that he brings to the table, which is why I think he has sort of grown on me. Oh, let's back up for just a moment here before we do anything else. Let me go ahead and shoot this guy. The smoke grenades will also, they do something really important, which is one of the reasons you'll want to use them. They do stagger enemies, meaning that if an Archean runs into it, they're going to be a little bit confused. And this is a good example of that. Watch. So the smoke bolts and the venom bolts are going to stagger enemies, preventing them from running towards you as fast as possible. So as you can see there, the smoke bolt also does a similar effect to what smoke brings to the table with his Z grenades. They just happen to do more damage per second. They're clear so that you can see through them, and they're going to, there's more of them. So or fewer of them, excuse me. So you're going to bring fewer of those to the table, and you're going to do more damage with them. So you're going to use these in much the same way you're going to use smoke. Let's say we're converting or playing a sabotage here. We will defend this area right here. That's going to prevent anyone from running through, and they will do damage. It also is going to be able to highlight them so that you can see them because it's clear. Whereas with smoke, it's going to scan them, and you're not going to be able to see through it. So let's say, for example, we let's talk about one key difference. So let's say we throw a Smoke's Z9 grenade here. You're not going to be able to see over there. Whereas if you use Capitão's bolts, you're going to be able to shoot them there, prevent things from running through them, do more damage to them, and you can see through them. So there's a way in which he does certain things better than smoke. The other side of that, however, is that the Archeans can see through the smoke to see you as well. So smoke's Z9s are going to create a little bit of a smoke effect built into the Z9, so it's sort of combining the two, and things aren't going to be able to see through it while also doing damage in a specific area to control it. So this is, as you can tell, a very, very close direct overlap with smoke. I think that Capitão does it a little bit differently, and candidly, it just doesn't feel as fun to play him, in my opinion. But you know, they're pretty close in terms of their overlap. So you're going to want to use these also in the same way that you would use smoke. Let's say we're doing a rescue. Let's say our rescue target's right there, and it's surrounded by bloaters. You can shoot your venom bolt and your smoke bolts right in here, and the range on them is going to be further. So I can aim it and be more precise with it, whereas with the Z9 grenades, you have to kind of chuck them across over there and kind of hope that it hits where you want it to. Whereas the crossbow, you can aim it properly, shoot it exactly where you want it to be, and in much the same way, smoke will cover an area, do damage, and stop enemies from hitting the target and die. This will do the same thing. So you kind of want to not run both a smoke and a Capitão because they do basically the exact same thing. They just do it in a slightly different way. As I mentioned in the menu walkthrough, this has become an operator that I enjoy a little bit more than I did when it first came out. But Capitão is very niche, much like Smoke is, candidly. I think I like Smoke's gun set, and I think I like the way his utility works. I like that you have more of them, and you can do more sophisticated things with them. In my opinion, I know some people will disagree with that. But he has grown on me. I just don't think it becomes this thing where I don't think he becomes powerful enough. He just doesn't feel stronger as he progresses. And I think the same is true also for Smoke, by the way. And I hope that they rework them a little bit. And I'll do a video here shortly in the next week or so about how I think this game would benefit from a rework in terms of how utilities work and how ults work. But we'll talk about that at another time. So that is Capitão. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel here and go check out the live Twitch stream at Merkaba18. There is a link to that in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.